That was not the matter. So if the policeman is guilty, he is going to court. If he's going to kill us,
October 2020. The movement slowly gathered momentum in Nigeria shortly after the nation's 60th independence anniversary. It started as a small campaign after a video went viral of a man allegedly killed by operatives of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, Sars, snowballing into a nationwide protest in a matter of days that shook Nigeria. The protest, which morphed from social media campaigns into street demonstrations, reached its climax on October 20, 2020, when the Nigerian army and police opened fire on peaceful, unarmed protesters gathered at the Lekki toll gate in Lagos, Nigeria. It was a movement birthed from years of pent-up frustration, a movement powered by youth. 3 years on, Nigeria and indeed the world asks, where is the justice? Despite the setting up of federal and state panel of inquiry that were headed by credible retired judges to investigate and make recommendations, the various reports that emanated became a subject of dispute between the governments that set it up and members of the probe panels, while recommended actions were jettisoned. To further discuss this, we're joined this morning by a director. He's a journalist and a lawyer. His name is Osa Director. Thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure here.
All right, 3 years on, I think a great way to start the conversation would be to say again that this is a sore wound that Nigerians unfortunately have to deal with every year. Parents who have been affected by this, siblings who have their siblings affected by the NSAS protest. And 3 years down the line, I want to find out from you, in your own thoughts or from your perspective, have we made much progress?
Sadly and unfortunately, I will emphatically say no. Although you can't say that things are the way they were or they were static, but the kind of progress that we have expected to have made has not been made so far. And it is a sense of disappointment that you observe that some of the, what I'll call the important recommendations, the 32 recommendations made by the committee set up in by the Lagos State government, were never obeyed. You know, for instance, the military officers who were deployed to the scene, you know, that ensured the massacre of Nigerian youth at the toll gate have not been brought to justice. So if those who perpetrated that violence and unleashed terror upon Nigerian youth have not been brought to justice, you can't say that there's a foreclosure. You can't say that all parties and stakeholders have can jolly well say, yes, we have moved forward and justice has been served. And I also remember that one of the recommendations of the panel was that they should carry out a coroner inquest and autopsies of suspicious death, since the government was denying that there was no death recorded during the massacre of Nigerian youth at the toll gate. And they also rejected that recommendation. And on the issue of even inviting the Nigerian army by Lagos State government to the toll gate, they hid under the fact that Section 217, subsection 2C of the 1999 Constitution as amended empowers the military to be called on to quell insurrection. But as far as I'm concerned as a lawyer, that was just being clever by half, because Section 217, subsection 2C of the 1999 Constitution as amended says that the military can be invited to suppress act of insurrection in support of a civil authority to restore order when they are called upon by the president, and the president must act according to conditions prescribed by an act of the National Assembly in that regard. So Was the Lagos State government the president of Nigeria? If he now argues that he got the authority of the federal government to invite the army, was there an act of the National Assembly prescribing conditions under which such intervention should be made? You know, so also rejecting that act where the military officer should be brought to book is something that is very, very unfortunate. And you now ask yourself, why do you invite officers that you don't have control over? It's like passing a law that you cannot enforce. That, for me, is a nullity, and is something that is very, very painful, considering the fact that till now we are unaware of the total number, the actual total number of Nigerians who were massacred on that day at Lekki, and maybe some in Abuja, but Lagos State was really the center spot of the action of the NSAS. So conclusively, I would say that it's unfortunate. I won't say that justice has been served in this case.
You know, well, what would you say would mean justice for these persons who lost their lives, and of course for what NSAS itself stood for? Because people might say or might argue that there's not been SARS anymore since the protest ended. The Special Anti-Robbery Squad has truly been disbanded and some of all of that. But do we see a new reformed police force? And the current police force as we currently have it, is that enough to point and say, okay, at least there was some victory for the NSAS protest? Is there more that you would ask that must be done?
Certainly more. Like I said, we can't say that we are static. That is it's a stagnant situation, in the sense that some of the recommendations were looked into and accepted by government. For example, the scrapping of the SARS agency, the SARS unit under the Nigerian police force. But you will discover that the NSAS was just a euphemism for a reform of the Nigerian police and the general security apparatus in Nigeria, in the sense that we believe that most of them still have this colonial mentality of being a repressive agent that must suppress and repress fellow Nigerians, instead of ensuring that everybody feels a sense of belonging, and then they are treated with a sense of fairness and justice. So what I would say is that they accepted some of these things in piecemeal. I want a wholesale application, a wholesale enforcement of the recommendation of the various committees that were set up, especially the Lagos State Committee on the NSAS panel, the NSAS incident. So what the point I'm making emphatically is that scrapping SARS unit is not necessarily a huru or a victory for the youth who trooped out on the streets asking for a reform of the Nigerian police. What they asked was a reform of the Nigerian police. Can you really say that the Nigerian police has been reformed? And they also asked for welfare, adequate welfare for the Nigerian police. Today, can you say that the Nigerian police is adequately taken care of, or that they are well paid and they are paid as and when due? You can't say that. So to that extent, the primary or the fundamental objectives set out by the youth who troop out to ensure that they bring an end to NSAS has not been achieved, which is to reform the Nigerian police, to ensure that the police are adequately well taken care of, that is, their welfare is improved upon, and strongly speaking too, those who died on that day, they've not received justice.
Yeah, if you remember, I think in July there was meant to be a mass burial, about 103 victims. I don't know if you remember that story.
Yes.
That leaked, and the Lagos State government didn't even deny it.
Yes.
So it means 103 bodies were not given justice. They still aren't accounted for.
Accounted for today. Yeah, in short, thank you for bringing that point. That is even what saddens most of us, because the government has been denying that nobody died during the NSAS. And in the same breath, you are now coming out to say that you want to give mass burial to 103 bodies. So where did those bodies come from? And a lot of families have been coming out who lost children, who lost their loved ones during that period. And you also remember that there was a live video, real time, by a young lady, DJ Switch, So we all saw it. You don't need to be, we're not told. It's something we saw. It's something we saw and witnessed. So for you to now say that nobody died is a life from the pit of hell. Permit my use of that language, So that 103 bodies that they want to give mass burial, where did they come from? That is the fundamental question we have to ask the Lagos State government. And that is why I said that the people, Nigerians have not received justice. Justice has not been served as far as the issue of Sars is concerned.
Mr. Osa Director, you have asked a very fundamental question. Where did those bodies come from? Some of the other questions that young people around the world actually have asked are, first of all, who gave the order? How did we get there? And they had asked again about the killings, what happened to these people? Like, where are their bodies? Now some of the bodies came out, and now part of the denials that the government, first of all, the government denied that those killings happened, and then they said a lot of that was being manipulated. Today, we do not know where DJ Switch is. The reports have it that she cannot come back into the country at this moment because of all that has been done. The question is, will we ever get answers to these questions? And will young people, we've talked about the police, now let's talk about the young people who daily have to face the harassment, who daily have to be profiled because they have a laptop or they're driving a fancy car or they have a fancy phone. Young people who don't have the nerve to go out at certain times of the night because they are afraid that they might not come back safe. Will these young people ever get answers? Will we ever find peace? Will things ever return back to normal in Nigeria?
Well, things can only return to normal when the government decides to do the right thing. I'm very sympathetic to the Nigerian youths. Some of us too have also passed through that process. Like I always tell my children that I spent my entire youth fighting for this country, fighting for an enabling environment, where every man or woman can thrive to the best of his ability and talent. That is not too much to ask from a government. And that is what the Nigerian youth were asking for. And if our leaders must be told the truth, Section 14, subsection 2C of the Nigerian Constitution clearly stated that the welfare and security of the people is the primary purpose of government. And any government that fails to provide security and welfare for the people has failed fundamentally. There's a deficit in character when you are unable to provide adequate welfare and security for the citizens. And that is why today you have incidents of Boko Haram, all kinds of insecurity that are being instigated by the unemployed. So, and the idea of profiling Nigerian youth, as you rightly mentioned, is something that is so unfortunate. We see that here in judgment over law enforcement agents in the United States of America who are being accused of shooting blacks because of the color of their skin. But yeah, we are also practicing what I call maybe internal racism. You just believe that because a young man has a dreadlock, or he refused to comb his hair and all that, and he's holding a laptop, he must be a Yahoo. And you even conduct this search on them without following the due process of law. So for me, the Nigerian society has become a cemetery of ideas for the Nigerian youth. No idea fertilizes in Nigeria, and it is so sad and unfortunate that the Nigerian youth have been subjected to this kind of condition.
If you can, in maybe about 30 seconds, speak about what's going to happen today. There's of course a police presence at the toll gate. Every year on the 20th of October, there's some type of memorial that is held, maybe a peaceful walk. What do you think will happen today, and how best can these people be remembered?
Yeah, the best way to remember the fallen heroes is to ensure that the dreams which they stood for is attained, and keeping their memory alive is a significant thing that must be done every year, irrespective of the threat or otherwise from the Nigerian security agency, especially the Nigerian police. And the Nigerian police must also appreciate the fact that these young men and women were actually fighting for them and the future of their children. So I believe that the Nigerian youth should continue to insist on ensuring that the right thing is done at the right time.
All right, thank you very much for joining us. So this is a very unfortunate story, a very sad story, but we do hope that the next time we're discussing this in the next 1 year, that would have seen massive improvements in the police sector and justice. I don't really know what justice would be, but that there will be some measure of justice that the families of the bereaved would feel, the deceased will feel. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.